Predecessor really struggles to have its own identity, and although I love the game and want it to succeed, it kinda just feels at the moment like a mix of its original game with added on features of MOBA Meta games, which leaves it to be a bit underwhelming. I think we need to discuss this because I can just see the potential in this game that I just can't see it ever reaching. Predecessor has been available in its beta form on PC and consoles for quite some time now, and Meta Studios have announced that it's getting its full launch this month of August. This is great news for the game. It means the developers think it's at a point where it's ready for everyone to experience. But can it actually compete against the current meta of MOBAs? League of Legends, Dota 2, and of course the game that is probably the most similar to it, Smite. In its current state, nah, hasn't got a chance, that's the truth. It has the potential to compete. Let's just talk about why. But before, I need to explain the background of the game. It's a bit of a weird story. Predecessor was actually inspired by a game called Paragon. And when I say inspired, I mean it's basically the same game. Paragon is a longish, sad story, which I'm going to rope in about this underperforming game, which a studio decided that it wasn't worth their time anymore. I know, a story we've never ever heard before. Paragon was made by Epic Games, and it was a third-person MOBA, very similar looking to Predecessor. After its launch, Epic Games had this smallish game which just started taking off, shooting into the stars, and they decided that all their other games were going to be abandoned and cease to exist. And this little game, of course, was Fortnite. But in a really, really positive move, so credit Epic Games, they decided to release all of the source code for Paragon and also all of their assets, which meant that a studio, if they wanted to, could come in and pick up the entire game and start again. And that's exactly what MOBA Studios did. And that's how we have Predecessor. So when I say it's similar, it's because they're using all of the same assets, literally all of the same assets, and basically most, if not all of the source code for Paragon. I played Predecessor now for about 50 hours. I came in with a background playing Smite and League of Legends Wild Rift, and I've watched a little bit on Paragon, and I really struggle to see how this game is unique in any way, shape or form. Of course, we have this game with no original assets taken from another game, and its main competitor is going to be Smite. Smite is the only other big third-person, over-the-shoulder MOBA, whereas most of them are from an isometric, over-the-top view. And how does it compare to Smite? I mean, obviously everyone's going to have their own little bias, and I do love Smite. It's one of my favourite games of all time now, but I do love Predecessor. I wouldn't say it's a bad game. I just think it lacks a lot, and it just feels like it's just copying everything. Visually, Predecessor is far superior to any other MOBA I've seen. It looks incredible on the engine that it's used. It's just beauty. It's just stunning. Smite 2 is coming out very soon, and Smite 2 looks awful compared to Predecessor. So we'll have to give it credit there. That's the only thing I think it has over any other MOBA. Obviously, I can't compare it to Paragon. I didn't play it. But I think what we've got with Predecessor is essentially just a very, very visually pleasing game, which is kind of like Smite, but with the speed of League of Legends. The biggest issue with the game is its game length. And there's nothing wrong with a game or a MOBA being long, but let me just explain what I mean by this. The average game of Smite, in casual, not ranked, can be really short. People can surrender, of course, but I would say on average, it's 25 to 40 minutes. 45 at a push. However, Predecessor, I have never played a game that's lasted less than about 34 minutes. And I'm talking like I've played games where I've had two people who didn't know their roles, were running around like maniacs, getting themselves kills, going like no kills, no assists, 15 deaths, having the other team with 80 kills and having us with 20. And then the game's still lasting 32 minutes. And it's slower through its leveling up system, gold system, and its essential farming systems. You receive so little gold for actions within the game that it just takes you a long time to build up your character, considerably slower. I would say it's probably 20% slower than Smite, and it doesn't improve the game for it. It just means that the games are just excessively long. You spend longer waiting for minion waves in the game. I mean, the first minion waves don't clash till like a minute 30. In all, the game just feels incredibly slow. And I get MOBAs like League of Legends are very slow to start with, but this is a third-person over-the-shoulder game. It feels like you're more involved, and you feel like you're standing around a lot more in this game. There's definitely periods in the first 10 minutes where you're kind of just like, right, well, I've killed that dude, and I've killed my farm, so I can either go take a turret and do no damage to it, because I don't have any abilities yet. I can go back, but I don't have any money to buy anything, so I guess I'll just stand here. I could run to the other lane, but I'm not going to get there in time, because I move so slow. So it just creates these little pockets of nothing, and it all affects the flow. You know, over-the-top games, including over-the-top MOBAs, can be slower because you're seeing more of the map. But when you're just running like 2-3 miles an hour, it just seems so slow. And I never thought Smite was a particularly fast game, and I think MOBAs over the shoulder have to be played faster. They have to be faster because there's not as much going on the screen. You don't have a player standing around not working towards something in a MOBA. But with Predecessor, I generally think they have to make the game faster. And by that, I generally mean probably an increase in movement speed for everything in the game, the characters, the minions, by about 3 to 5%. But also increase the amount of XP and gold you earn by probably 10 to 15%. And because they've implemented the last hit system from League of Legends, so when you're farming AI minions in the game, you only get gold if you deliver the last hit on that minion, which can be really frustrating in the starting of the game when the minions hit each other and kill each other. The minions actually attack faster than you, so you just stood there kind of like waiting to attack, because you don't want to attack too soon, because if you attack too soon, they've got a little bit of health, you lose that gold, and it is so frustrating. Of course, later on, when your characters start to snowball in terms of damage output, this is not as much of an issue. You do find when you're in the lanes, particularly if you're playing as the carry or the off lane, the solo, that you kind of just stood there, waiting and be like, I'm gonna do it, wait, no, hold back, and then it just becomes this weird situation. I think you should change it to, yes, if you deliver the last hit, you get more gold, but if you don't deliver the last hit, you still receive part of the gold for attacking that minion. That alone would actually change the entire speed of the game, because it would mean that you were able to snowball faster. Because in this game, the snowballing does happen really quickly. So these games are long, but you actually find that as the game continues to go on, the respawn times are so long at the end, the game really wants it to end, so you kind of spend the first 15 minutes kind of just like not quite getting enough action in it, to the game basically punishing you with massive respawns and trying to speed the game to an end. I think it just tries to take the League of Legends speed and apply it to a third-person MOBA like Smite, and I just think it ultimately doesn't work. It leads to a very, very slow start to the game, and then a snowball at the very end. But there's a lot positive about this game as well. I actually think Predecessor is a fantastic game. I've actually been enjoying it more than Smite despite this. I've actually kind of learned to become accustomed to this type of farming, but it just does feel weird, and I just feel like it struggles to keep the speed and the momentum of the game. I think it leaves Predecessor currently as a shell of Paragon, where they've just kind of taken bits of League of Legends and thrown it in. And when you're really trying to compete with Smite, it seems like you should be actually mimicking Smite a bit more, not League of Legends. I think in its current state, it's going to really struggle to get a console fan base because of its speed. New players will enjoy Smite a lot more than Predecessor, and that's not what you want. You need to be getting the new players in. The people who are already deep into Smite, deep into League, it's about getting that new audience in. We also got to acknowledge that MOBA Studios nowhere near as big as Epic Studio, nowhere near as big as the studios that make League of Legends and Smite. So let's just hope that as the game gets out and it gets way more players, especially when they can look at the amount of console players, especially the amount who are losing and the amount when they are dropping off, that maybe they can make more improvements towards it. Because I want it to do well, it struggles right now to be unique enough to either convince players of League of Legends, Dota, etc. to join, and I think it's too slow for new players, which is a shame. Let me know your thoughts. Peace.